Hi everyone, this is Fontos. Welcome back to my Age of Empires 3 co-op series with Bob of Black Arrow Gaming. In the previous episode, I finally got into the action a bit by taking out a couple of green cities and launching and aborting an attack on their throne. At the very end of the episode, I had moved my army back into Green's border and discovered that they had left their throne lightly defended. I am in position to quickly attack it at the beginning of this turn, and that is how we will begin episode 5. The game says this is closely matched, but again, probably overrating the Lost Souls. I feel very confident about this battle, especially without their leader in the battle, so it'll take her twice as many casting points to cast spells like Stiffen Limbs right there. That was actually a pretty good move by her, since I don't have any way to get rid of the Stiffen Limbs other than casting Purifying Burst by my leader, a spell which removes all buffs and all debuffs on the battlefield, but costs 20 mana and 20 casting points, which is a lot more than I wanted to spend at this point. So I try and fail a smite, still does decent damage. Forces the Storm Sister to use its Heal Undead. That was kind of my strategy, was to get all three of their support units to use their Heal Undead ability as soon as possible. Moving my army up this direction, since it's much more lightly defended. I didn't want to get bombed by the Storm Sister and the Reanimators as I approached. Again, I considered using Purifying Burst to get rid of my Shock Trooper's Stiffen Limbs, but decided to go with a Smite. Got kind of lucky. I did almost maximum damage. Got another one of his Reanimators to use its Heal Undead. Got one of them to use its Resurrection ability. They now only have one Lesser Reanimate available and only have one Heal Undead available. And I am at their wall, beginning to climb it, beginning to smash the gate. That Prismatic Spire does a ton of damage to a unit that has low resistance like my orcs and aren't on guard. I was a little unlucky that it hit a unit that had used an attack that turn instead of one that was on guard. Forced me to use heal, slowed me down a little bit. Probably not significantly enough to affect the battle. But as you can see, not everything, or as you will see, not everything goes perfectly for me. So maybe having that unit use its heal so early in the battle might have affected things a little bit. My plan at this point, I was looking around to see which unit I could do the most damage to, but then I realized only one of his Reanimators had Lesser Reanimate left. If I killed that one, they wouldn't be able to reanimate it. So I go ahead and hit it with Magic Fist. Again, because the prismatic spire did so damage to me, I'm going to have to use some healing on myself. It was a little unfortunate that that cherub died, left my shock trooper all by himself up on the wall. I kind of wanted to rush him forward and end things quickly, but he would have gotten blasted by all three of those support units. Even as tough as he is, as many hit points as he has, he would not have been able to survive that for more than a couple turns. I ran him back before using Ironheart just to make sure that he couldn't get hit by the enemy, since he's my most vulnerable unit at this point. And even though it's going to let the Lost Soul come back, I decide to run my shock trooper back to rejoin the rest of my army as much as possible, just to make him a less vulnerable target. Again, I'm going to hit the guy who has Reanimate. I got kind of unlucky there. The smite succeeded, but did minimum or almost minimum damage. Left him with 2 hit points. I'm going to move in a little bit cautiously. Try to keep my most vulnerable units in the back, hiding behind things, hiding behind other units. Leaving them on guard as much as possible. Made sure to turn him around so he couldn't get flanked after he does this spell. And that right there is what hurt me. I did not see the stunning touch coming. Just not an ability that gets used very much, so I didn't really expect it. By stunning my Black Knight at the very beginning of that turn, it gave the rest of his units a free hit on it. Knocked its damage, or knocked its health way down. Plus, it's kind of sitting in the way. It's making it hard for my units to go attack the enemies that are surrounding it and save its life. I spend quite a bit of time thinking about what to do here. I felt like, and I still feel like, there was a way to save the Black Knight, but ultimately I never could figure it out. At least not in a way that wouldn't risk one of my more important units. Since my shock trooper has stiffened limbs, I'm not able to run up and hit the Storm Sister twice in one turn. Since my leader has already used too many casting points, I can't use Purifying Burst at this point. I considered running one of my heroes all the way around to the back to get in that Reanimator's face out there. That might have worked, that might have saved my Black Knight, but I decided it was way too big a risk. Running a hero right up in the guy's face. Even if I had used my leader, who has heal, I could have run up into the Reanimator's face and healed myself. There still was a risk that the Reanimator could get do a critical hit or otherwise just get really lucky and do a ton of damage. It was a small chance, but there was a chance that it would kill my leader, and I wasn't guaranteed to save the Black Knight. I think had I been guaranteed to save the Black Knight, I would have rolled the dice and risked running out and getting it in that Reanimator's face. In the end, I decided to just take out these weak units around the Black Knight. I was hoping I could kill the Storm Sister, but I couldn't even get lucky with that. Just going through all my units, trying to calculate how much damage I could do. It was never enough. Could only do about half the damage I needed to that Storm Sister. That's why the stiffened limbs was so tough. It not only made my shock trooper weaker, it didn't let me move far enough to hit it twice, which with Warcry I think would have been enough to kill that guy. Then I could have killed the Storm Sister, killed the Lost Souls, killed the Cadaver. I still might not have saved my Black Knight, but I would have had my shock trooper sitting in the way. I would have at least had a chance to save it. And here I finally go. At this point I've decided that there's no realistic way to save the Black Knight. Just going to do as much damage as possible to the units that are here, while protecting my most important units, which are my 3 heroes and my shock trooper. I actually considered running up and hitting the Storm Sister with a melee attack by my leader. That would have killed it, but it would have left my leader very vulnerable. At that point, the Reanimator would have been able to choose whether to kill my leader or kill my Black Knight. As you can see, he's going to do a ton of damage to the Black Knight since he's stunned and has low resistance anyway. A lot more than I could possibly save him from, even if I had healed him. Not to mention the Storm Sister standing right there that could smack him. This is where I was considering running my leader around and getting in that guy's face. I thought it might have worked, but it would have put my leader in pretty serious risk. Plus I wouldn't be able to kill that Storm Sister, and I thought it still would have ended up killing my Black Knight anyway. If I'd done this, it would have been a big gamble and might have cost me my Black Knight and my leader in one turn. As you can see, it would do quite a bit of damage to the Black Knight, even with its melee attack. So I go and get the flank attack. Was disappointed to find that I couldn't kill the Storm Sister without using a melee attack, which I had already decided was a bad idea. Looking at it now, I wonder if instead of hitting the Storm Sister, since I couldn't kill the Storm Sister anyway, maybe healing the Black Knight might have been better. I don't think it would have made a difference. I'd have to go back and watch the video again to see. But it's something I didn't consider at the time, and I should have. And there you have it. Lost one of my better units, but I took Green's throne, and then Green buys a hero right outside the throne, which I immediately jump out and kill. The city I took's actually pretty terrible. It doesn't have any good structures. All it has are a mana node, which I think is a water node. It might be an air node. 2 gold mines and a magma forge. There are no structures that give you unit upgrades. There are no structures that give you a larger amount of gold or production, like a trading post or a flow rock quarry. My plans for this city are pretty much just to produce resources. Probably won't bother building any units from here. Just build the buildings necessary to increase my resource output. And now I begin the hunt for Green's leader. If I can find her quickly, I can take her out, make it a 2-on-5 game pretty quick. The city, Bob and I had discussed what we wanted to do with it. We had a few options for me transferring it to him. I could have raised it, and Bob could have used the Animate Ruin spell that Undead get that transforms a raised city into an undead city. Or I could have just kept the city and given it to him as a gift like we did in episode 2 with the city that I built. But we actually decided that I was going to keep this city. Since it's not quite on such a strategic chokehold position as I thought it originally, we decided that it'd be better in my hands. I would be more equipped to defend it right away. Probably should have given my leader Cure Disease instead of a resistance upgrade. Cure Disease would have helped with the stiffened limbs that Green likes to use so much. Gonna give this guy Sorcery 5. He now has 70 casting points, which will be enough to cast Chaos Rift when I get that. this point, I think I was waiting for Bob to finish talking about something, just to make sure that he wanted me to keep the city and not give it to him. Here Green's units on the water still haven't quite figured out what they're doing. Looks like one might be coming back to try to recapture his cities. That Unicorn Rider. The army with the hero, I have no idea what it's doing. It's been going back and forth for several turns now. Getting close to finally clearing out that haunted boneyard. Notice that razing that city would not have given me evil points, again since it's an undead ghoul city. I decide paid absolution since my gold per turn is starting to drop as I build more and more tier 2 units. Of course, capturing a fairly big city will help with my income. And all these small cities I've got will be growing as the episode progresses. I think by the end of the episode my income's about double what it is right now. So maybe I could have passed on paid absolution for the time being. Since I don't know what Green's hero's doing, I'm sending that army to protect my brand new city that I just built. Trying to build watchtowers around the west. Since I don't have any cities out in that direction, and I think there's a good chance that if there's not a land bridge from the enemy up the west, there's at least going to be a small amount of water that they can cross. Since I don't have any armies to go capture the watchtowers that are out there, I need to build a couple of my own just to make sure I can see anything coming. My first hero choice was a Theocrat. Since I already have 3 Theocrats, I decided to pass. My next one was an Archdruid. I really want something with more brute strength at this point, whether that's a Warlord or even a Dreadnought. In fact, I think all my heroes right now are Theocrats and an Archdruid. No, I've got the Sorcerer. That's right. Still, I need something with some melee strength to it, so I decided to skip the Theocrat and skip the Archdruid. Hope to get lucky with my third choice. City only took 1 turn to purge to orcs. Now I'm looking and seeing just how bad it is. It's not terrible because it does have some size to it. But if it were fully grown, if all my cities were fully grown, this would probably be my worst city. Dread Siege is annoying, but it only affects units in the city's borders. And my units have such high morale that that's not going to be a big deal. Still going to try to disjunct it. But I only try once before giving up and casting something else. White's got a little army in my borders that I've got to go take care of. Isn't that super tough with only 2 units? But since one can fly and get flank attacks, and one can break units' guards with its Ice Nova ability, I had to be a little bit careful. But since I stunned it right away, this ended up being a pretty simple battle. Leave all my units 1 tile away from it, so they don't get damaged by its cold ability. Step up, stun it again, and I'm gonna finish it off with my unit that needs experience the most. Considered immediately pushing south with that army. Decided that is too big a risk. There might be a huge enemy army down there that would destroy me without any chance. So I run back in case I need to defend behind those stone walls. Since my gold income's pretty low at this point, I end up building merchandise in most of my cities that could be building buildings and building up. The Green Army seems to have split from its hero. I have no idea where the hero ended up at this point. It's a little bit frightening. But I do have armies near all my cities, close enough that I could run back and defend if I need to. I don't have an army at my throne right now, but the units in my second city would be able to get to my throne in just 2 turns, which is enough time to get back and defend it. I could move them at the end of this turn and then at the very beginning of the next turn and get there before the enemy can make any movement of his own. Here I am counting out to make sure that units could get back and defend my throne if I needed them to. And there goes Green's army to who knows where, who knows what they're trying to do. Still don't have their hero in there. But a cadaver did come out of nowhere, which made me think his hero attacked someone and produced that cadaver. But I still don't see the hero. And here something bad happened. The Haunted Boneyard finally produced a roaming army. Finally produced a bone dragon. I was 1 turn too slow to get there and stop this. Fortunately, my army is pretty tough. It should win this battle easily every time. But it's going to weaken me, possibly weaken me enough that I can't take the Haunted Boneyard on the next turn. Could use Smite with pretty good odds on these units. I decided to wait until the Bone Dragon lowers its guard to get a better percentage chance of doing maximum damage. There he lowers his guard and wastes his gas breath when it can only hit 1 unit. That's very nice for me. Crusaders are well equipped in this battle. They not only have all the things that made them great in the dungeon battle against the Manticore Rider, but they also get Holy Champions, which gives them an additional bonus against all these undead units. And there you see he resisted my smite. I did basically minimum damage there. Which costs me... well, it probably doesn't cost me anything. That Crusader would have died anyway. Well, maybe doing minimum damage with the smite did cost me my greatsword. So I'm left with only 3 Crusaders now, trying to clear a haunted boneyard with 5 units in it. I'm not sure if I'm able to do that. It says probable defeat. So what I decide to do is send my 3 orc priests that were defending this city from the spawning bone dragons. I decide to send them around to join my Crusaders, clear that haunted boneyard, and then form one 6-unit army. I'm producing another priest, so I will be able to have a unit to run back to my throne if I need to. I decided to get Divine Protection because that was a spell that I really could have used in that city battle for Green's throne. I could have run my shock trooper up into the mix of the enemy units, put Divine Protection on him, which would have made him resist their ranged elemental attacks much better. Possibly could have saved my Black Knight if I had done that. Decided to go with the storehouse first to try to get it up to city and then metropolis faster. Since it was owned by a necromancer, it didn't have any of the city growth building or city upgrades. At this point I decided to send my cherub back down to help scout south of that green throne city I just took. I'm not sure how good a decision that was, because I do still need to keep scouting for the green units that are on the water, especially with me moving this army away from my core cities. I do end up summoning another cherub and putting him in my throne, but still losing a turn or 2 of scouting might have been a mistake. Even though it does give me the chance to scout out down in the south here. I don't know. I don't know what would have been a better use for that cherub. was trying to decide what to build next. With that observatory, my borders are going to grow by a tile. And then in just a couple turns, the city will be a metropolis. So I will have that dungeon in my borders very quickly. And I will want to start making shock troopers as soon as possible. So I'm going with a build order that will improve my production before I have to build the slaughter pits. There's Green going after that independent city, and I don't know if you noticed, but Green's hero just ran up there, just outside my throne's borders. I did not notice that while I was playing. It doesn't end up costing me much, but it very likely could have. Especially since Green's got this axeman that he sneaked up. And this is where knowing that I could get my priests back quickly helped me. I'm able to get that priest back at the beginning of next turn and defend that city against the axeman. Disjuncting failed. I decide not to cast it again. Decide to summon a cherub instead of disjuncting that spell again. One of those independent units decided to suicide itself on Green's army. We were a little fortunate that Green never ends up taking that independent city. It wouldn't have been difficult to get back, but it would have required Bob sending an army out of the way to go get it. It would have slowed him down a little bit. You can see at my throne I'm building a war hall. It's not actually a building that increases my production, but it's a building that I will need before I can make the shock troopers. So it is something on the route to getting shock troopers at least. I was thinking even before I lost my Black Knight, I could use a good cavalry city. And then once my Black Knight died, those thoughts intensified. So I looked around. I found one Spring of Life that was right by my second city up there. Now, I'd wanted to make support units there, but I have other cities that are good at making support. That's the only city with the Spring of Life. I think eventually I might convert that into a Black Knight building city. Here I'm going to stick up another watchtower. I'll be able to see anything coming from the south at this point. And I've got to remember to move my priest back into that city as quickly as possible here. Then when I summon the cherub, I just stick it right into the city to help with the defense, just in case it gets attacked. But Green knows that an axeman against a priest on top of a wall is not a good battle for him. My third hero that I got was also a Theocrat, so I just pass on him. I don't have enough gold to get her anyway. I'll have to hope for something better next time I get a hero. I'm gonna start researching advanced seafaring. I think this is the point of the game when I need to start thinking about building ships. I will include at the very end of this video kind of a ship route map to show what I'm thinking there. None of the enemies have built any ships as far as I can tell. So if we're able to get some ships out and get the early advantage, the early naval advantage, I think that'll help us out a lot in the long run. That way we'll only have to defend 1 or 2 land choke points if our ships are able to dominate the water. This army's got some decent units. This enemy army's got some decent units in it. They're able to come close to killing my Crusaders because that Blight Elemental puts weakened on him. With my low resistance anyway, that lets his normally pretty weak poison attack do a ton of damage to me, even though I'm on guard the whole time. In fact, if he had wanted to just hit my Crusader 3 times with his Berserker and then use his poison attack on it, he might have been able to kill me. But instead he uses his Berserker to try to kill my Mystic, which doesn't work at all for him. I'm able to use Werepanther, heal some damage. And then kill him with my weak tier 1 units. You see how much blight damage that thing would do to me. There's like 20 blight damage per hit, so I decide not even to risk that. I try to shelter him a little bit behind my White Witch, leave him on guard. He's still able to hit me for 24 damage. But since my Crusader is the only unit weak to that attack, I'm able to finish him off pretty easily. Get another nice destruction node in my borders too. Let my Crusader heal a little bit to see if the game liked my odds any better. It still says probable defeat, so I decide not to. Alright, here you can see Green's got his hero within range of my throne city. That concerns me quite a bit, because that Axeman and that hero would be able to take the city against just an Orc Priest. So that's when I decide to summon the Cherub in the city. I also decide to build a Crusader and rush it, which cancels my War Hall production. Even with the Cherub and the Crusader, I'm not sure if this was a battle I would be able to win. Especially when you see some of the abilities that that hero has eventually, towards the end of this video. And here's where I make a bit of a mistake. I found Green's leader right there. It's close enough that I can run my main army out and kill her at the beginning of the next turn. That means that that green Axeman and that green hero threatening my throne city would revert to independence. They would be neutral independence, they wouldn't try to attack me at all. I should have realized this. I should have realized that that meant I didn't need to cancel the War Hall and build the Crusader. And I didn't need to summon the Cherub there. Unfortunately, I did not realize that fast enough. Instead, it cost me some gold when I decide to hurry production on the Crusader to get it out in one turn. It costs me some happiness. It costs me a scout, ultimately. At least with the gold that I freed up from not building the War Hall. Excuse me. With the gold that I freed up from not building the War Hall, I'm able to build something else in one of my other cities. There's still a lot of shaded map here. So I'm going to send my builder down kind of towards the coast of this inland sea type area here. That should give me pretty good line of sight of any units coming across it. Our plan, Bob and Mai's plan, was for him to send his main army over to that island to capture that human city that White took in the previous episode. I was going to send these 3 units just to help a little bit. But with White getting aggressive, we decided to pull back a little bit just to see what happens. I do have that other army on the way. It probably could have handled White pretty well. But just to be safe, we pull back. And here we go. As soon as Bob ends his turn, I'm going to take Green's leader out quickly before she has a chance to move. I don't know if she didn't have casting points or if she just kind of gave up. I guess it's possible she didn't have mana. She does not have any cities at this point, so once her mana runs out, she's going to be in trouble. The units I have, this is pretty simple now that she's not able to cast any spells on me. I can just get a few flank attacks, stun her, and just like that, Green is defeated. My cities are no longer under threat, Bob's cities are no longer under threat. And it is just a 2-on-5 game at this point. Got another Sundering Warhammer, which I didn't want in the first place. I'm just going to send that to the leader of my other army, since he doesn't have any units with any guard breaking ability. I'm going to give this other ring of frost protection to my Draconian. He will now be immune to frost. Which could be nice since the Frostling Archdruid is nearby. She will have some units that do frost damage. And I'm going to give the helmet, which gives extra resistance and extra defense, just give that to my leader. Make him a little tougher. And I'm going to give the Wand of Black Bolts to my Sorcerer. Since the only damage he can do at this point is shock damage, I want to give him some extra types of damage that he can use, along with his inflict stun ability. The Cherub also found a couple red cities when he took that watchtower. The big one to the southeast looks like it's probably Red's throne. That's something I'm going to want to check out and make sure of as soon as possible. The one to the southwest looks like a really good city, and it's very lightly defended. So my plan is to move my main army, even though there's only 4 units in it, I'm going to move it after that red city. If Red tries to defend it with a bigger army, I'll probably just raze the city and run away. Let Bob use his Animate Ruin city on it. Rebuild it a lot faster than I would be able to rebuild it. Still having a hard time deciding what upgrades to give my other Theocrat, since I do want him to lead his own army at some point. Give him Healing Aura, which doesn't do any good at this point, but will down the road. Gonna build public baths again. Increase the city's happiness will increase all of its resource outputs. Gonna clear this gold mine on my way down. I do have quite a few structures around some of my newer cities that need to be cleared. I just have way too many more important things I need to do with all my armies. Hopefully in the next episode I'll be able to send something to clear the structures around my 3rd city. This city could be so good if I ever get around to doing something with it. And once I convert my 2nd city into more of a cavalry building city, my 3rd city will become my main support unit building city. Originally I planned on it being a evangelist building city, but now it might end up making priests more so than evangelists. I do really like evangelists. They're one of my favorite units in the game. But the priest is my only good ranged unit I can get until I'm able to research Shrine of Smiting. So I do need to make a lot of priests in kind of the early game and the mid game. This guy did quite a bit of damage to my hero, but he was never really under threat. I kind of had to do maximum damage to him just to get him down as far as I did. Considered going after that fire node, but it'll take a little while longer for my borders to get out there, and with my hero as damaged as he is, I just didn't want to risk losing him against those fire elementals. Plus that would have slowed me down, prevented me from getting down towards the area where I need to help out against white. Get natural healer that will help him heal his damage much faster. Built a Theocrat's Conclave there in preparation for building Evangelists. Right now, these units, even though they're independent, they're not hostile, I still decide to attack them. And I position my Cherub really terribly and end up losing it as a result. It's a ghoul unit, so I can't curse it. And I don't do quite as much damage. I was thinking I was flying it around so I could get a flank attack on the Axeman, but I left it right in range so that he could do that. And I can't heal my Cherub with my Priest. The Axeman used defensive strike, so it's on guard, so I can't run my Cherub away. And I basically just completely wasted that unit. Which would be no big deal because it's just a cheap summoned scout. But that ends up being something I could have really used in this next battle. Even though it's closely matched, I thought I'd have better chance than I did. For one, I didn't think he would have any casting points. I guess maybe independent units don't need to have mana to cast spells. Because their hero didn't have mana, so why would this guy have mana? And he has some pretty nice abilities. Pounce hurt me really bad. At this point I realize there's nothing I'm going to be able to do. I went after him to kill him just to get his items. But it's his items that end up killing me. Look how much damage he's going to do. As good as my Crusader is, he's still going to be doing about 12 to 15 damage every time he hits me. And since he's a ghoul unit, I'm not getting lifesteal from it. And I end up losing those two units. Just completely threw them away. Part of the reason I made this mistake, I thought I had more casting points. I forgot that I had just summoned a Cherub and didn't have any casting points. I only had 10, not enough to cast anything from outside the battlefield. I will be able to build up an army and go kill that guy eventually. Hopefully he doesn't run away, or run away too far. I think the only ways he could go are straight into Bob's land or straight into my land, so one of us should be able to kill him and get his items. I just don't want him running into the enemy's land and giving whatever items he has to them. Gonna rebuild the War Hall that I canceled. I canceled just so I could throw away a few units, apparently. I want to go back to that army by the Haunted Boneyard. I never do decide to attack it, but I was thinking after I stopped playing. All 5 units in that Haunted Boneyard have melee attacks. None of them are ranged. I think With my Crusaders having tireless, meaning they can retaliate on any hit, and with them having Holy Champions, they're going to do a ton of damage to all 5 of those units. That should actually be a really easy battle for me, even though the game says it's probable defeat. I think whenever we play again, probably before we move to the next turn, I'm going to just go ahead and attack that Haunted Boneyard. That will let me move my Crusaders west to join up with those priests faster. Then I can get those production resources that have been sitting up there and move that army on to do something more productive. Again, as you can see, my gold income is about twice what it was when I researched Paid Absolution, so I'm not even going to cast it at this point. I'm going to cast Beacon of Faith to start growing some of these small cities a little bit. Here is the episode 5 map. We've added a little bit more information to it. We've discovered Orange's throne and the city that I presume is Red's throne. Confirmed that Red is connected by a land bridge. It looks like the people out to the southwest might be connected by land too, and I'm guessing that Orange is connected by land. So we might all be on one big giant landmass. I haven't played a lot on Continents map. Maybe this is the way it always is. I don't know. You can see our army movements. I'm going to continue pushing my main army south towards Red. Their second city is a pretty nice city. It looks lightly defended. I might get myself into trouble pushing there, but I think more than likely I'll be able to take that and either hold it or at least raise it without my army getting destroyed. Bob and I are going to go after that island to the west of where Green's former throne was. Capture that city, we're going to raise that city and let Bob send a settler over to build in a different spot on that island. My army up in the north is going to clear the Haunted Boneyard, hopefully before we start a new turn, then link up with some orc priests. I still haven't totally decided what I want to do with that army. I'm leaning towards sending them underground and building a new army to go clear structures towards my third orc city, and then letting that third army, which would be a mix of Crusaders, priests, and possibly a shock trooper or two, let that army clear out some of the structures out in the west so I can build another city or two, and then go capture those to the Fey and the Archon dwellings. Bob is sending the rest of his armies to go clear out stuff in the east and the northeast. He's going to go recapture a fortress that some animals took, and then presumably he's going to send that army either towards the front lines with Red, or if we're able to handle Red fine, he will probably send that army south after Orange across the ocean. And now here is kind of a ship route map. All the land is connected, but all the water is not quite connected. You have to go up around the outside edges of the maps to get anywhere. There's no rivers connecting the inland sea that our cities are on with the inland sea that the enemy cities are on. This could be a good thing. It will shelter our shipbuilding cities. They won't be able to be attacked by the enemy ships very easily. But it will also mean that we can't get ships to the front line very quickly. We're going to kind of have to build them up and send them out as one big large force rather than rushing them in to attack wherever they're needed. Bob will be building a city on that island that can build ships, and I will eventually try to get a city on that inland sea as well, kind of out to the west of where Green cities were. in the area where I'm sending my builder to build a watchtower, more or less straight south of where the Archon city Fur Fatal is. Well, that's it for episode 5. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and watch the first few episodes if you haven't already. If you want to see Bob's perspective, watch his battles, hear us commenting live while we're playing, hear us discussing some of our strategy, go check out his channel. I've linked to the playlist in my description. Thanks, and I'll see you again in a few days.